Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kerry Garrison.
How's everyone doing?
Pretty
Are we
good.
awake? Still a little early. They usually put me at the end of the day when everyone's tired. So now they put me at the beginning of the day when everybody's tired. Yeah, so we'll see how that works out. How many of you don't know who I am? Oh, okay. I've been around for a little while. I'm currently the VP of Strategy at 888 VoIP, which means my job is to help resellers be successful. I work with manufacturers to do tutorials, overviews, product interoperability guides, and I work with resellers to help improve their business, to show them how to use different products, how to do sales, how to do marketing, and really how to improve your business. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is ways that you can utilize some tools, techniques, and best practices to make yourself more profitable. Who does not want to be more profitable? Okay, that's good, that's good. I'm not answering my wife, that's all right. She can go on hold for a little while. I used to be at Finality, where I was the product manager for TrixBox CE for a couple years. I've written 2 TrixBox CE books. So I've been around here for a little while. I've been to the last 4, 5, 6 Astricons, something like that. So I've been around this group for quite a while. That's who I am. Let's get right into it. Consultation process for a phone system. How many of you are traditional data guys? You're the IT guy, computer guy, okay? And we're getting into telephony. So it's a very different sales process than selling somebody a replacement workstation or an upgraded server, you know? Oh, you need a mail server, here's the specs, we're done. Selling a phone system is certainly much more complex, because how many times have we had a customer call us and say, you know, my computer's running slow, or it reboots all the time, and you say, how long has it been doing that? And they're like, oh, a couple months. Like, but the first time that their phone system has a problem, they're calling at you screaming. So an unhappy phone system customer is a bad thing to have, because they're very cognizant about problems with their phone system. That is the lifeblood of most companies. Well, there's that. In order to figure out how to sell to them, we need to get into the customer's head, figure out what they dislike about their current system, what features can they not live without. And this is the difficult one to try and get out of people. A lot of times a phone system will go in and they'll go, well, I need it to do this because our old phone system did it. And if you didn't figure out what all those things were in advance, you could find yourself in a situation where you can't deliver a feature that was a must-have for them to have. And what is the reason why they're changing? Usually it's because they're outgrowing the system, or their old system caught fire, or there's some reason why. Usually it's an older system that they want to add more people to, but it's just horribly expensive to do that. Now, on most of these slides, you'll see a URL at the bottom, and that's an article that relates to this slide that's going to have a lot more information on it. We have a whole series of articles like this at 888voip.com in a sales and marketing section that go into a lot more detail than I can do in the 9 hours that we have here this morning. So, but I'm going to leave early because Allison's going to come up and talk, and I know that's why all of you are in the room. So, first thing we need to do is a site survey. Find out, is the firewall VoIP friendly? Do you have access to it? If you're going into a company, sometimes there's the IT guy who has access to it, and they don't want to open ports. They don't want to do things for you to make your life easy. So you need to make sure that you have those things in place, and that the infrastructure there is going to be able to support what it is that you want to do. Are you going to run a separate network for the phones and one for data, which certainly my favorite way to do it is to separate the two pieces. Is it even possible from a wiring point of view? Are you going to replace the switches with PoE? Again, my personal recommendation, because then I can put battery backups on the PoE switches, and I can keep their phone system running longer than their other systems. Because again, phone system, much more critical to their business than being able to get email generally. Do they have a need for paging and intercom? How many of you are selling paging and intercom devices all the time? Most of the time? At all? Okay, so not a good percentage. We're going to hit on this several times because paging and intercom is huge. It is a very large part of a phone system installation. In traditional phone systems, paging and intercom devices can make up 20 to 25% of the endpoints. Let that sink in a little bit. If you did 100 endpoints last year, did you put in 20 overhead paging devices? Okay, it's a big, big part of the business that many of us overlook because we think about paging through the phone instead of having emergency paging systems overhead, a bullhorn speaker out in a warehouse or out in a parking lot area. These are big pieces of the puzzle. We're going to touch on this several times today to make sure I drill it into you. Are there going to be remote users? What do their networks look like? What kind of routers do they have? Are you going to have to upgrade some people out there? Is there room in the server rack for the system? Where are the phone lines terminated? Do we need to put a gateway there? Can we use an internal card? So there's a lot that's going to go into figuring out the components that we're going to use for the system. Next, we have a call flow meeting. How many of you actually design a call flow diagram like this for your customers? Okay? Yeah, so that was 2 of you. How do you know what you're doing unless you have a call flow? A lot of people that I've talked to, they do this after the sale. You need to do it before the sale because you need to know how much labor is going to be involved in programming the system. A great example, I went into a meeting once, the room was about this big, and they had whiteboard material all the way around it, full of call flow design. It took me 8 hours to convert that into something usable. Before, it took me 8 hours of programming it within the phone system. So had I not done that before and gone after the fact, after I've already given them a quote, I would have been out 16 hours of labor. So you have to have a call flow before you can give a quote because you need to know how much time you're going to put into programming the system. Your customer needs to know that you're solving their problems, that you're addressing the call flow needs, that calls are going to be routed to the right people. You need to get all the vested parties involved, the department heads, to find out how they want calls handled within their departments. You need to get a sign-off on this so that when you implement it, you can say, this is what I said I was going to deliver, this is what I delivered, and everything's good to go. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of back and forth that things aren't working the way they wanted it to. So this is a crucial part of a quote process. Right, I'll do this against their existing system so that then I can make recommendations about how we can improve on this. You can do this with, Visio or PowerPoint or several online tools. It's not that hard to do a call flow design, but it is a very important process. When we're meeting with the people in an organization to find out how calls are routed through a business, who's the most important person that you should spend some time with? Receptionist. They handle most of the calls. If you do not have a happy receptionist, that's worse than having an unhappy manager. That receptionist can really help you a lot. Other than minor technical issues, it is the call flow that is the make it or break it of a phone system. If callers have a bad experience, if they can't get to people, if they get frustrated, that's what's going to really upset the callers trying to get in. You need to work closely with the client to determine exactly what it is that they're trying to accomplish. Design the flow chart, and then come back with a flow chart that you've designed that addresses their needs and the capabilities of the system that you're proposing. Whether it's SwitchVox or a free PBX or whatever platform it is, you need to understand those abilities and then design it based on the abilities of that system. Here's a little typical flowchart design. You have your main menu, 1 for sales, 2 for support. That can branch off to IT support or telephony support. Putting together a little call flow like this, really handy to visualize what it is you're doing. It also makes a good reference when you're going back and testing the system and making sure that the calls are going exactly the way you had intended. Do you need call queues? You know, do you have more callers coming in than agents available to answer the calls? Do you need time conditions where the menus change based on the time of day or day of the week? Holidays, you need conference rooms. Who is in what groups, whether that be ring groups or call queues? Where do those groups go if someone doesn't answer them? Are you minimizing the number of key presses it takes to get through a system? How many of you have ever called a company like T-Mobile or something, and you're sitting there on hold, and you're going, okay, one sounded pretty good, okay, two sounded really good, and you're actually holding your fingers up going, nah, 3 wasn't it, 4, oh wait, 4 sounded better than 2, maybe I'll go with 4. I mean, that's a bad call flow design, right? How many of us have experienced that? You know, almost everybody. So you minimize the number of key presses, and they minimize the amount of time people spend on hold. Some simple guidelines, not to step on Allison's toes here, because she's doing her IVR stuff next, right? But some simple guidelines, keep it simple. Human brain remembers things very easily in groups of 3, so if you can keep it down to 3, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Doesn't always work. You know, sometimes you need 4 or 5, but try and do the best you can to minimize the number of options that are available. Pay to have good professional call recordings done. I happen to recommend the IVRvoice.com, which is Allison right here, the voice of Asterisk, okay? But if you spell it out, she can do anything. I've had her do some Spanish that was quite impressive. But tell her what you want, tell her how you want it done, and it's going to sound a lot more professional than just someone in the office doing it from their phone. This is the face of the company when someone calls in. It's the first impression someone gets. It should be good, okay? And she's not that expensive. She's not cheap, she's not that expensive. Walk through the design with each department head, you know, think about potential loops that people can get into, and always have a way for someone to get to a human. That's my pet peeve. But she's going to give you 15 of these points, right? So, the quote, does the customer need overhead paging? We're going to talk about, I told you I was going to cover this, right, a couple times. Very commonly overlooked. You got great products out there from companies like Valcom, Cyberdata, integrate with the systems extremely well. They can be part of a ring group, they can do multicast, they can do all kinds of cool things to enable overhead paging, bullhorn paging, remote door entry. All these things are very, very important things to address. Did you account for all your installation labor? If you're getting started with this, that's one of the first things that people often mess up on, is not taking into account how much time it takes to unbox a phone, snap it all together, plug it in, take it over to a desk, hook it up. I mean, on a 60 extension system, that can account for an hour, hour and a half of extra time. So make sure you think about all those things. Very often we're not doing installs during Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 because we can't interrupt business. So are we taking into account that we're probably going to have to work after hours and weekends to do our installs? Are we doing cable drops, you know, 1 jack per drop or 2 if we're segmenting the network? How many of you do line item quotes? 5 Polycom 605s and 4 of these, right? Don't be embarrassed, don't be embarrassed. I'll mock you, but don't be embarrassed, okay? That's bad, okay? Because it allows customers to shop you. It allows them to go online, figure out what that product was, and find it for less. The better way of doing it is to do a proposal. At maximum, break it down to hardware, software, and labor. At the most, okay? Do not list every single item and its price, because you'll get burned time and time again. A line item quote also does nothing to talk about how you are solving customer problems. How are you addressing their needs and their requirements? A proposal will go over all that. You reiterate the things that you talked about during your meetings, their pain points, how are you solving them, how the system is going to work. All of that goes into a proposal. Given the same price, the company that appears to be the most professional and addresses the customer needs is going to win that business. So a line item quote is not going to do you justice out there. Does that make sense? And then the what about questions. What about PoE headsets? Do you include headsets on your quotes for the receptionists, assistants, managers? It's not a lot of extra margin, but it definitely is some, because most of them are going to order them. Most installs are going to have a couple headsets on it. Not everybody uses a headset, but enough people do that you should include that as you're talking to people. What kind do they need? Are they a manager that does management by walking around and they need a deck-based system that they can be anywhere in the office? Do they just need Bluetooth because they pace in their office? Do they just need a wired one? A lot of things go into that. What phones are you using with that? Are you going to need lifters? Hate lifters, you know? Bluetooth, all these different things go into just figuring out what headsets to use. Oh wait, overhead paging, right? Am I making a point here with overhead paging? Okay, it's a big piece of it. How many of you are selling IP security today? Okay, what does that have to do with the phone system? Almost nothing, right? But you're already there. You're already talking to them. You're already addressing their concerns, their needs, their requirements. Most companies could use some security, front door, back door, if it's retail, over the register. IP cameras today have dropped in price like mad. Most of them come with free recording software. You can just throw it on a server and do your call or your video recording along with motion detection. Grandstream, right in the booth here, fantastic cameras, very affordable. It's a good time to talk about it. What else can you do with it? Well, some of them, like the Grandstream ones, act as a SIP endpoint. You can just call it from a video phone and monitor that extension. Very, very cool. So look at things like that as ways of expanding the product portfolio that you have. IP security is an excellent one. Video conferencing and telepresence. This has come down in price like you wouldn't believe. It used to be $10,000 per station. Now we're looking at systems that are $3,000, $2,000, even down to like $1,500, $1,600 a station for high definition conference room type of video conferencing. We use that in our office. Our office is distributed. We've got our headquarters in New York. Brad's in Annapolis. I'm in Southern California. Every morning we have a video conference call. That's how we start our day, you know? Typical agile type development, but we apply it to the work that we do, and that's how we kick off our days with a video conference. Again, not integrated with the phone system, but it's addressing those customer needs, and it's something that fits very well into your portfolio when we're talking about phone systems, security, all this stuff. And lastly on here, which probably should be first, did your quote include enough time for training? There's two types of training. There's train the trainer training, the guys who are going to be managing pieces of it. If you're giving access to the admin system so they can do add moves and changes, you have to do that training. But you also have to do user training. Your users of that system need to know how to do basic things. Change their voicemail, transfer calls, do conference calling. All the basic functions of whatever phone that you're selling to them needs to be addressed in that training. And that usually is about an hour long in most cases to show people and let them ask questions. And if it's a big group, maybe you have to break it up into groups of 10 or 20 people at a time. So make sure you're including enough time to make sure people are trained properly and they know how to use that system. When we present a system, when we go in to do a demo, typically I say, don't ever show them the admin system. That's not what they're going to use on a daily basis. They're going to use the phone. Now, if you're doing something like SwitchVox or you're installing iSymphony or something like that, you're going to want to show them that because that's what they're going to be using for their call management, chat, presence, and other services. So show them what they will be using to make and receive phone calls, how they're going to transfer calls, how they're going to do conference calling, how they're going to do those different functions of the system. Don't show them the admin. That's boring. And really, I recommend you do all the admin. That's money in your pocket to continue to support that customer. So if you're doing that, then the rest of this is how do they work that system on a day-to-day basis. Why is a desktop component important? You know, a lot of the systems today have some type of desktop component. Switchvox has the dashboard, iSymphony, Trixbox Pro has HUD. Most of them are coming out with some type of desktop component piece. This is important because it allows you to sell the phone system as a productivity tool, not just as an ability to make and receive phone calls. It really can be productivity. We can monitor queues. We can do simple call management, parking, transferring, conference calling, monitoring, whispering, barging. Things that require cryptic dial codes are all done with a click of a mouse. Chatting with other workers, so we don't have to try and call them to see if they're there. We can look and see their presence, know if they're at their desk, know whether we can call them or not. Some of them have very easy access to voicemail. Some of them have very easy access to doing email, transferring calls to voicemail. So a desktop component can be a huge piece of a phone system installation because we can sell it as a productivity enhancement tool. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. If we're just selling a phone system as a way to make and receive phone calls, that's great. But if we can help them improve their business by increasing their productivity, we've solved yet another customer problem, right? So, forgot what my next slide was. Support agreement. How many of you sell support agreements with all your systems? Okay, that's a pretty bad percentage too, okay? A support agreement is going to lock you into that customer. It allows you to determine how you interact with that customer over the next couple years. It could be a multi-year, a single-year contract. And I'm not going to go into how to design a support contract because that really is going to depend on how you want to do business, whether you just want to include emergency support or maybe you don't include emergency support. Is it a fixed number of hours per month? Is it so many incidents per month? Is it just doing add moves and changes? Are you offering extended hardware warranties? You know how big that one is? If you can tell a customer that their support contract includes next day delivery of a phone if something goes down, the first payment of this pays for you to have a phone sitting in the garage somewhere, you know, as a backup instead of having to order one. Regular backups. Now that can be a little difficult with some of the systems, but to be able to offer regular backups of their system so it's offline, so if they have a catastrophic failure, you can get them back up and running much easier. These are all things that can go into a support contract. But again, you need to decide how your business works, what your response time is going to be. Are you going to offer a 15-minute response, a 4-hour response? All that needs to be built into a support contract. But it locks you to that customer. They're not going to go and find someone else to manage that system if they're paying you on a monthly support contract to manage it. How many of you offer leasing? Okay, again, very small number. Leasing has a lot of benefits. Your customer's into that phone system for a lot less money, usually just a couple $100s a month. Sometimes there's no down payment. It preserves lines of credit, flexible payment options, low buyout at the end, and you can add your support contract. Most leases are 3 years, okay? How would you like to get paid in advance for a 3-year support contract? Anybody? Yeah. Now, that's usually pretty cool, except that would go into my checking account and my wife would spend it in the first month, so I'd be doing free work for 2.5 years. So there's that. You gotta be a little careful there. It's funny that Allison was the one that laughed. So that's some good tips that I have to help you try and be more profitable. Hopefully you're walking out with some ideas on how to improve your proposals, making sure that you're including things like overhead paging, right? Headsets, networking, that you're doing a proposal instead of a quote, that we're looking at all those things that go into doing a very good proposal for someone. That call flow design, right? Looking at all those different things. Our site has a lot of helpful information on it. The main one that I'd like you to look at is 888VoIP.com/sales and marketing. A lot of tutorials on there on how to go about getting leads, how to close more business, where to find customers, all kinds of stuff like that. So I encourage you to come by the website and check it out and see if we can find some ways that we can help you to be more successful. Have any questions? Yeah. Oh. Sorry, I got ahead of my moderator here.
So what is your response to a prospect when they tell you they want a detailed breakdown of your proposal?
I just don't give them one.
You just tell them no?
No,
and
because
that guy
what are you looking at in the cost of the phone? Well, the cost of the phone is going to include the cost of the hardware. It's going to include my cost to set it up, to program it, provision it, warranty it, all those things. So I don't just put in the cost of a single phone because that really doesn't give you the true cost of putting that extension in.
I get that, but I mean, so is that your response to your customer?
Response.
Just saying, I don't give them to.
And 7 years of doing it, I've never had to give a line item quote.
They never asked for it.
They've asked for it.
Okay.
Oh, they asked for it. Yeah, and that's my response, is that does not give you the true cost of that phone by just giving you the cost of the hardware.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry. For us as networking, we have tried, and every client say, I want to know what I'm paying, and
Yeah, it says right in the quote, it says hardware.
they want to know what goes every single extension, every single phone.
I don't do it because it doesn't give them
But
the true cost.
He
of
want to
that.
know when he add one phone, how much it's going to cost.
It's going to depend. Are you going to do it as part of a support contract? Because you could build that into the support
No, when
contract?
he added a new phone, new extensions.
Yeah.
So we want to know a breakdown to add more extension to his system.
Give them some kind of a price. It's going to be whatever figure out the cost of the hardware, your time, and all that, and then give them a price.
So
And
you're
then you go,
breaking down.
Oh, it's $200 per extension to add. $200 for this phone? No, that includes the phone. It includes my labor. It
extension.
includes all the other pieces that go into it, the testing, and all that. And that gets you away from talking about an individual device.
Remember also that if the customer wants to go shop the cost of that phone, my next answer to them is, sure, it's a Polycom phone, it's a Yealink phone, and yes, you could go out and buy just that device for X dollars on the internet today. That's great. But you know what? When that phone breaks, when it doesn't provision properly, when it isn't working, you're on your own. I can't help you. The cost, what I charge you, is not just the piece of equipment. It's the fact that I've got to handle the warranty on it. I've got to handle RMAs. I've got to handle support. I've got to get it turned up. I've got to get it working. The times when when you will have to expose somewhat the cost of what you're charging for a phone or for extension is on add-ons. I mean, you're absolutely right. But the conversation should be about, listen, I'm not just providing you a phone, I'm providing you support. Anything goes wrong with it, I own it. I don't own the piece of equipment, but I own the responsibility to make sure it always works in your organization. And that's what you're buying from me, not a piece of equipment. Yes, you could go buy that on the internet. Have a good day.
Great. And that actually is the key to qualifying your customers in and out. Because if the guy rejects that, did you really want to work with that guy anyway? Do you want somebody that's going to be on the phone every day on that kind of stuff? Do you know what I mean? Let your customers qualify themselves in or out with that stuff. Also, one other thing on a line item is actually to come back with a question and say, well, what specifically were you looking for? 9 times out of 10, it's not actually a breakdown. There's some little nip thing they want, and you can just answer that question. Always answer a question with a question. Do you know what I mean? Okay. All right. Any more questions for Kerry? Just raise your hands. It's a question from Alison.
No, I am married.
Oh, darn. Darn. So your observation about the call flow diagram and how everyone should map that out, I think it's really important to do that. Don't send that to your voice talent as the script. I call it the Corleone family tree. You know, Carmela and Tony begat. Yeah, no, it's hard for the voice talent to figure out what is a note and what is the actual prompt you want us to record. So that's great for getting organized, but then take it and put it into more of a
You need to
form.
supply the voice talent with a script.
And I'll get more into that in my talk.
Yeah.
What preferred?
That sounds vaguely
It's not my
familiar.
usual mic.
Where have I heard that voice before? Oh, on my phone.
Thank you, Alison. We do have time for just a couple more questions if people have got them that they'd like to ask. Okay.
Run.
Let's go to you. So, you're just trying to get the weight off.
Really quick, what's your favorite the HUD device for call presence?
Oh, you had to go there.
Does Phonality still support the original HUD?
Man, you had to go there, didn't you?
You just had to.
You know, I guess I might as well just be honest, right? Trixbox Pro's HUD, by far and away, it's the best designed product so far. There are a lot of people playing catch up, but it's also one of the most expensive Asterisk-based systems. So there's a huge trade-off. If you want probably the best desktop app, you're going to pay a lot of money for it, you know, unfortunately. And they made a decision a couple years ago. They were not going to roll that out to the open source side, which was unfortunate. So you pay big money for it, but it's a cool piece of software. Yeah.
Quick and dirty question. What's like your middle ground on lease terms that you deal with? 3 years, 5 years, 1 year?
Usually 3. It's the easiest to get approved.
Okay. So, if you want to ask Kerry any more questions, you can go and seek him out after the presentation is finished. But now let's just say a big thank you to Kerry.
Thank you.
And if you can be